We're glad that you're joining us on our show again this week. We're always very happy for people just like you, people that are interested in what's happening in our cities. Because it's important for good government that there be an interchange of ideas between council members and mayors, between residents and the council, between the staff, and all of these groups involved, because then people will know what's going on and you might have good ideas that you need to share with them. So we'll encourage you to take down the name and the phone number and the email of our guests each week. And each week we'll have someone on from one of the 9 cities in CCX's viewing area to bring us up to date on what's happening. And I'm very happy to welcome Mayor Jeff Lunde.
Thank you.
From Brooklyn Park. He's been on our show before, but we're glad to have you back again.
Glad to be back.
And he knows that I'm going to ask him to introduce himself out to our wider audience. Brooklyn Park people will know him, but let them know a little of your background and how you got to be on the council and mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm serving my 3rd term as mayor of Brooklyn Park, and before that I was on council. So been around a little bit, maybe long in the tooth at this point. So this is be my final term, the self-imposed term limit.
Okay.
And so my goal is to get stuff done. So it's always been my mantra, and now I have a clock that's running.
Right.
And so I'm really focused on completion and projects that'll help move our city forward and then move out of the way and let the next mayor take us to the next level.
How long have you been in the city?
I think about 22 years.
Oh, so you've seen lots of changes happen.
Yes, my wife
even
more. She grew up in Brooklyn Park, went to Park Center, except for living out in college. She moved back to Brooklyn Park. I don't think that was ever her dreams that she'd come right back, but she is, and so she's lived here almost 40 plus years.
So between the two of you, you've seen changes, and
Yes.
so now you're helping institute them.
I'm trying my best.
That sounds good. And I thought first we'd talk about your fire department, because you've been doing some changes in there. You had a task force, and this group is trained in firefighting?
They're not trained.
They're not trained.
So the task force was supposed to be about residents coming together. First step is to kind of step into the shoes of firefighter, not just to step off and say, okay, here's what we think our department should be, but they're actually doing some training with them. They're actually giving them a chance to kind of wear the equipment and then try to get a sense of, and then start to talk more about, okay, now you've seen what it is, here's what we need to do for staffing, kind of use them as a sounding board. Try to get a good idea. I mean, if you look at the history since when I first got on the council, we were a paid-on-call department. And now we are full-time, almost all full-time department.
Yeah, so there's been a big change over time.
And the other thing is I tell residents, where does my taxpayer money go? All of our firefighters are trained EMTs. Before we had a few, now all of them are. It's a requirement. And so that means people arrive at 4.5 minutes, that if it's a heart attack, they can help, which matters. So we know that this matters. We know it's important. I've never heard anybody say, you know what, I don't want trained EMTs arriving on 911. So we think we got something there.
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah, so we have a professional fire department, full-time. We're trying to see where can we take it to the next level for coverage and stuff. So this, I think, will set us up.
So the task force, was this a one-time task force, or is it something?
Yes, it's really to get some ideas from residents. And there will be a strategic plan probably later this spring. In fact, it will be later this spring, maybe early summer. That'll take a hard look at, we've had some consultants come in and kind of dive into the numbers. And try to disabuse some myths, but also support some facts. And so the council can say, okay, here's what we need to do. And it's, frankly, it's always about the money.
Oh, definitely. How much you can do.
Yes, if you want a faster response time, you pay for it.
Oh, definitely.
And as you get closer to instant, it becomes more expensive by magnitude.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we got to decide.
But and it sounds like you're gathering a lot of information to help you make good decisions.
Yep, I think part of it is the challenge in Brooklyn Park is we've always had fire departments, and they're always called by the political districts, East Station, Central, and West, which is also East District, Central District. And so I think people kind of attach oh my God, this is the East District, I represent District, I got to make sure of the Central or the West. And so what we're saying is, hey, let's take a look at the numbers. And see what makes sense for staffing, where, when, and how. Because when you dial 911, what do you care about?
Somebody come.
Exactly. And I want them to be the best trained person on the whole planet, and they arrive as fast as they can. And that's the expectations that people want and hope for. So.
And then part of it is the change in society where there are more people not available like there used to be for just on call.
Well, it was interesting. The consultant, we did a preliminary meeting with them, and they talked about, because I asked them, I said, what's the bigger driver of healthcare for fire departments? Is it families that maybe use 911 as their doctor visit because they're not used to visits. They may not have health insurance to that quality. Or is it seniors? It's seniors. So I always thought, young families, we're very much an immigrant-driven city.
Oh, yes, you are.
And thought that's not the driver.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that America's getting older.
Yes, definitely.
And so how do we adapt our coverage to do certain things? So, I mean, one of the ideas is at some of our larger complexes, we may talk about sharing costs for an EMT to stay on site versus having a vehicle have to go to there. Because the number of calls are not such that might make sense.
Well, and if you don't try different things out, you won't find the most efficient way to do it.
Right. I mean, if you find that you're making so many calls, like maybe let's just say one a day to a place, and you can figure out the cost of that. At a certain point, you might go, you know what? If we just had a person stationed there from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., you take care of 90% of the calls, and the person would be there instantly.
Right, right.
So then it becomes about money.
Oh,
what do we,
does
it make sense?
Right.
Well, maybe it does make sense. So we're going to try to figure that out.
And I think, too, that residents appreciate when you're making thoughtful decisions and you're backing them up with real data.
Residents are never happy, I should say never thrilled about paying taxes.
No.
But what they are thrilled about is paying for service that they value.
Right.
And so they just want to know, you're taking this money, where is it going? How do I see the benefits?
Right.
And I think people may not always agree on what they pay for, but they at least understand it, and I think some level respect that.
And appreciate that's happening. Now, how long has the city council been working on this fire department making
Forever?
changes?
Wait, no, I didn't say that out loud. No, I think it really, like I said, it really started when we started on pay on call, then we went to, from volunteer to pay on call.
And
all these
how long
kind of
ago was that? That's what I was thinking.
When I started on council.
When you were there, okay.
Yeah, it really,
so over the
it's a thing that we've stepped through, and the full-time firefighters, I want to say maybe 4 years ago. 3 years
I
ago.
know within the recent memory.
Yeah,
right.
And so I think that we're starting to see those benefits, and frankly, people don't care if it's a union, non-union, pay on call, volunteer. They just want
somebody
fast.
there fast.
And so
somebody that
we
can
know
help.
that's what people care about, and so we see benefits from a full-time fire department.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't aware that the fire department is the first one on call for emergencies.
Yep.
I don't think,
Yeah,
unless you've had that experience.
Well, and some cities have, like Robbinsdale has North Memorial there.
Right.
Maple Grove, so they tend to get faster service because they're close.
Oh, yeah.
And so we know that we're kind of in that, I don't call it a sweet spot because it's not sweet, but we're in that in-between zone.
Yeah.
And so we know that sometimes we'll beat people there.
Right.
And so if we can sometimes get to a call in 2 minutes.
Ah,
our average is 4.5.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's getting down there. Now, if someone is interested in becoming part of your fire department, you still have some people on call, right?
Yes. Yep. And also, we're going to start to do more efforts to diversify our fire department. And so treat like fire, I think they call explorers.
Okay.
And so that's still, I think, younger, like high school age, where people can start to get into it. But we still have that idea that if you want to become a firefighter, just like a police department, we'll help pay for your schooling.
Oh, okay.
And so we try to get people into that system so that if we help build a skill set up, we actually know this person really well.
Right.
And it makes it easier for us to recruit people we know very well.
So if some people in our audience are thinking, I want to find out more about that, what's the process they should follow, or who should they contact?
I would just, I hit the brooklynpark.org and look at the fire department, and right there on, they believe in the landing page for the fire department, you'll see information about applying. Because we're full-time, we carry less head count. But I think we're really going to start to, after this strategic initiative, talk about how can we get people of all backgrounds to be interested in being a firefighter.
Right. That sounds like a good process for the future.
Yeah.
And how long does it take for someone to go through the process of applying and getting approved? And because you said that there's training they have to take, right?
I think if they come fully trained, I think they have to have the EMT certificate.
Okay.
I think they're looking for level 3 firefighters. So there's licensing issues.
Oh, right.
A lot of times we get firefighters who are firefighters at other cities who are want a full-time position. But there's part-time. And still paid on call.
Oh yeah, so there's lots of choices for people if they want to.
I think it's just that our kind of business model is gearing more toward full and part-time, and eventually, it'll be more full-time. So that's part of the thing is we used to carry over 100 firefighters.
Oh yeah.
That means you had to train them all because they all were expected to know the same thing. Now we carry about 45 to 50. So less training costs. So that's one of the things. But I think if we know and can nurture people through that process, it becomes easier that when we do have an opening.
Oh, then you've got someone to fill it.
And then our staff already knows them. They've already trained them. They know the Brooklyn Park methods. They know the policies. They already have a leg up when it comes time to interview.
Right. So there are lots of opportunities if people are interested, even though you have a whole full-time group.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you think this is kind of the way fire departments are moving in current times, or?
I believe so. I think the idea that we'd be a full-time fire department. If you would ask me, 10 years ago, I'd be like, nope, that's never going to happen. But you start to get down to the cost, the true cost of what it takes to carry that much people power, that you become like, okay, we could have full-timers. And I think right now we're trying to figure out. I think we're a little shy of where we need to be head count. So we need to take care of that. But
now I thought we should have a light rail update on the blue line, because that's
Speaking
in the
of
news
not
off and on. Yeah, right. What steps have already been taken? Kind of lay out the history of where they're at, and then we'll talk about what's happening now.
I think there's, for about 10 years, as long as I've been mayor and that the process started, we have moved the process of, local consent, planning, the stationary planning project, so that where the station or what's our we just approved transit-oriented development, which means around the stops. We're putting a plan in place because we want to drive development, which is high value.
Oh yeah, and it does work.
Yes, it does. And so we're trying to say, hey, we're not going to put an empty warehouse next to a light rail stop. That makes no sense. We're saying no. And so we know what needs to happen at those stops. I think right now we're spending our energy at the Capitol, St. Paul, and in DC to get out there and talk to legislators, local, state, and federal, to make sure we line up the resources that we need. I mean, right now, Hennepin County is on
they're on
51%. And then the other 49% comes from the FTA. And before they'll get on board, they need the light rail to get on board. And so we know the number one target is to get the light rail on board. We have been informed they're coming back to the table to talk. We're hopeful Burlington Northern will do this. We know they've done this in other cities. And we've done it elsewhere. So to us, it's a matter of just being respectful to the process and bargaining with them.
And keep working in a friendly way,
I think we've been using the term, and I think it absolutely is, the project is shovel ready. It's over 90% engineered. It's ready to roll. And so really, when our business development on 610, a big part of why we get some of these international businesses is they want to be at road and rail intersections. And that's what this is.
And so if I'm remembering right from I've read, you need the money, and then you need the railroads to be able to use the right of way or something.
I think there's three things right now, and I'm working closely on that with other Blue Line coalition cities. First thing is working on is TORC cap, which is basically saying, the rail saying we need some protection. If something happens on the rail line that is not our fault, we shouldn't be held responsible for it. So if there's a derailment, it hits another one of the trains, you can't sue them. It's not our fault, the derailment. They've done that in Southwest, they've done it in North Star. It's a standard agreement. We need the legislature to do that. They've done it just 2 years ago for Southwest. Then once that's done, we need to get the access agreements with Burlington Northern. Which again, they've done elsewhere. Doesn't mean it's easy, but that's fine. Nothing ever worthwhile is. And then the third step is once those two things are in step, go back to the FTA, where they have our application. They're watching the project and say, we've got this done, the agreement with the railroad, you're it, the last step. And that we're hopeful at that time that then we'll start to get appropriations. So, those are the three things.
Now, the blue line will end in Brooklyn Park.
We'd like to say it starts in Brooklyn Park.
Starts in Brooklyn Park, sorry.
Yes.
The blue line will start in Brooklyn Park, up by the target area 610.
Yep. That'll be the first stop over at 610 on the north side. The second stop in would be on the south side, 93rd and West Broadway. It'll go down to North Hennepin Community College, 85th, and then continue on West Broadway at the Starlight area, by Target and Cub and them. That'll be another one. And then the last Brooklyn Park stop will be down by 63rd, where there's already a park and ride. In between then and there, it'll go over just south of Target. It'll go up on a bridge and over Highway 81.
And then it'll go through Crystal and Rob? Finsdale and Golden
Yep.
Valley, right?
Yes. Yep.
And end up in North Minneapolis by the
Yep.
stadium.
Yep. I think what's important is a couple years ago we formed a coalition of cities. So Blue Line cities, all the cities plus New Hope and Brooklyn
Right.
Center who are not on the line but are going to be benefited.
Right.
We're all joined in to basically we want to have a little more advocacy for it.
Right.
And so we have a group that gets together about every month. We have a group that's going to DC this spring. We go out about every 3 months. We're down the Capitol lobbying. I've been down there about a half a dozen times already this session. And so we are out there advocating for our interests.
So it's on schedule. And
Yes.
a few things left, and hopefully.
Make no doubt about it. Those aren't trivial little things.
No, there's a few things. I
Yes,
didn't say little.
absolutely.
I said things left that are important, but you've got people working on them.
Yes, we know what they are.
Right.
And I think that you talk about we've gotten through this 10 years of process, all this plan, all this work, and we literally are down to 3 things.
Right.
And they're very specific.
And there has been a lot of opportunity for citizen input.
A ton.
As much as I've ever seen in any kind
I think
of
at this point, city residents are always like, okay, when's it coming? I mean, they're kind of like, we've talked enough. When's the dirt moving?
Well, I wanted to have you talk just briefly about the 2020 budget planning process because it's already getting underway in all of our cities. And what kind of, if you can kind of talk about the priorities for the budget that just got approved in December, and about maybe any changes or differences you see coming up in the one you're going to work on this year.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, and it's just a challenge. Most of the cities in Northwest, not all, I think Plymouth very less so, but still, we're heavy on residential.
Right.
Which means our property taxes tend to come out of people's houses.
Very definitely.
Not corporations, right? So you want to have a balance. So that's one of the things our development goals is to get more businesses in. Because people own houses, that doesn't mean they have a job. They can be retired.
Yeah.
Lots of things. So, and in Minnesota, your share of the pie, that is your budget, determine the value of the house. So if your house goes up 25%, your taxes are going up. Now let's say, I always tell people,
your income might not have gone up.
We could have froze spending, spent no more money than we did last year. But the fact that the houses average went up 10 and yours went up 20, you will pay more.
Right.
So I always tell people, whatever the average rate increase, if you're above it, you're going to pay more. If you're below it, so we could increase spending, you could pay less in taxes.
Right.
And that doesn't make people happy, but I just try to get them to understand.
Well, to understand how the process works, that's important.
I think the other part is people, myself, everyone, we think, oh my God, let's cut this $250,000. That's going to make a big difference. We figured that $250,000 is $1 a month to the average medium value home.
Wow.
So $12 a year. Now, I'm not saying that's not important, but I always like put perspective. Because if I cut $1 million, I save you $4 a month.
Yeah.
Now, if your house went up 25% versus an average of 10, you won't even see that $4.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing is we know we have to try to live as much within our means. We also understand that 76% of our budget is employees, healthcare and benefits. And so, do you like the fire department to show up?
Police to keep your city safe.
Most of our employees are public safety.
Right.
And so that's one of those challenges.
Well, and then not everybody understands that those taxes go to the city. They go to the county. And they go to the school district. So sometimes the city is the easiest one to complain to, right?
Oh yeah, no, and that's fair, and we talk about that. And I've seen some people whose condo developments are just, their values have gone up. They're beautiful, and their senior retirement, and the values go up 25%. And it's like, I don't know what to tell them, because under state law, I can't give you a break based on your, you get paid. It's based on what it is. Now, if we cut the thing, it's all reversed, not in order. Right. So we try very hard to keep things under control, but
So the budget you'd be working on this year will be fairly similar to the last one?
Yeah. We've been averaging, I think, the levy is always misleading. Because people think, oh, the levy went up, how much are you paying? That's really what I always ask people. And I think our budget last year went up about 2%, 2.5%, maybe 3%. And I expect it's going to be proposed at the same level, because if you give employees a 2% raise,
And then if people want to follow this process, they can always look at the last year's budget on your website, right?
Yep. And right now, people are getting their evaluations for their
right,
property.
Yeah, coming
what is
in
it
the mail.
worth?
Right.
And this fall is, okay, what was it worth, plus what are our levy?
Yep.
There's your tax thing. And like you said, it's not just us, but businesses, it's four-way split.
Right.
The state gets the deposit. So
Yeah,
it's,
right.
and so it's a four-way split. So I think we have a budget advisory commission that gets to work really more toward late summer because there's so many other things that kind of come into play. I think we're all watching what's the housing market doing.
Oh, right.
We're watching the economy has at play. So, yeah.
Lots of factors involved.
We endeavor as much as possible to spend other people's money.
Right.
And so when we go after transportation dollars, we try to get grants and money. So.
But anybody interested, they can always follow along on your agenda and come to your meetings.
I think in probably April, we'll get kind of our first look
at
the budget for the fall. And usually through the summer, there's all kinds of other things that start to get plugged in.
Right.
That we'll start to get.
And it is like almost a year-long process to carefully analyze what's there and what you want to do. And it's a complicated process, but it's one that you don't rush.
Well, and the other part is we have a number of our employees are in unions. You bargain with unions.
Right.
So when you set up a 2-year agreement that says we'll give a 2% raise, guess what? They get 2% raise. And the other part is we have a kind of a tradition in Brooklyn Park that people who aren't in a union, we tend to get about the same raise because we don't want them join a new union. So then we have more. So we tend to keep that process going.
What roads are going to be under construction in Brooklyn Park this summer?
So not specific ones.
Okay.
I think there's different things. We've got some stuff in the east that we're starting to do.
Okay.
It's always I always be very careful because if I promise a road's going to get redone, hell hath no fury, like a property owner expecting the road to be done. No, I think that most of it, we've got road work that's always occurring.
Okay, right, on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. And so I think that people have a chance to look at the website, check out the map. They'll be able to see what projects are being done.
Is the easiest way to see if it's affecting their neighborhood. Some
areas, like in the southwest corner of the city, have been an area that's needed the roads the worst. They're getting most of the work done right now.
And then how is your street maintenance funded? How do they?
General fund, except for the franchise fee.
Okay.
And so the rules on the franchise fee, it's $7 per account for electrical and $7 per month per account for gas. And so $14 a month.
Right.
People get billed. It only is for roads that need to get redone.
Right.
It has a sunset clause because what happened was 25 years ago, there was a road asphalt mix. It was a bad mix.
Oh.
And Brooklyn Park built a bunch of roads during that time frame.
How sad.
And so we didn't discover that roads that we thought were going to last 40 years were lasting 20. So there was this big, huge bubble in the way to fix it. So it has a sunset clause.
Right.
Other cities have it full time. That's how they pay for the roads.
Right.
We'll let a future council decide if they want to continue it. But for ours, it has an end date until they're all redone once.
All right. Another topic that I asked you to think about was what you're doing to update your park and recreation area. Maybe you can tell about, there's 3 areas that I saw on your website, so people can go look at it there. But one of them was changes for Mississippi Gateway Park.
Yep.
Now, where is that park at?
It's now called Coon Rapids
Oh, okay.
Dam.
I was thinking that.
So now it's going to become Mississippi Gateway, and we had this Brooklyn Park environmental area to the west. We're going to combine in a joint powers agreement our park with their park.
Yeah, right across the river, right?
Yep, and we're going to put them together into one park, and it's going to be called Mississippi Gateway. So it's going to be a completely revamped park. It'll be a regional plant, not a with a sign, but with amenities and stuff that you would expect. That'll celebrate nature, not pave it. I guess is people like. So we're trying to be very mindful of the fact that we want people to go there to celebrate nature, and to give people. Maybe people may have physical challenges, maybe not as able, or in wheelchairs and stuff, the opportunity to get into nature.
Right.
Which
That
doesn't
is
exist
important.
right now. It is.
No, right.
I mean, people think about people with challenges as being, well, why do they care? They can't go out and enjoy it. But what if it's a parent?
Right.
How are they supposed to take their 4-year-old and a 6-year-old out into nature if they can't go out themselves? So that park will be starting, I think we'll probably get, hopefully, preliminary plans We've got preliminary plans. I think we're working on the funding with Three Rivers is our partner.
Right.
Actually, they're the lead because it's going to be managed by them. But we're very in tune to get that park redone. Along with that park, there's the park bond that was passed. So the city voters approved the park bond. And so the other part is River Park, which is farther south in Mississippi.
Oh, yeah, that was another one that was listed.
That one will be revamped as part of the park bond. And that will actually be, hopefully, we think, connected with Mississippi Gateway using the river as the connection point. So
cool.
Kayaking, canoeing will start upriver
and go down there.
And then bus or train, or not train, but van or something back up.
Cycle people around.
Absolutely. So we're trying to find these ways where we sit along the side as one of these natural wonders in the U.S., Mississippi. And finally, we're going to start to have ways that we can get people into it, connected to it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and so that's what I think our park story is we've been approved. You know, the residents have basically given us a credit card limit.
So you've got some money ready.
We got some money. And the thing is, we've used none of it right now. So until we do projects is when we start to say, okay, let's issue a bond.
Right.
So it'll take 10 years before we issue the full amount, if we do.
Oh, right.
But if River Park needs $1.5 million, and that's what it's scheduled, that's when we're ready to do construction. That's when we bond for it. So some of these effects of the park bond vote won't show up for 4 years.
Up for a while, right?
Yeah. And then after a while, we'll do Hartkoff Park.
Right.
And then we'll do another park.
And so then those two are proposed, the information on your website is a proposal for what might be done there?
Yeah, that we're starting to get into that public engagement.
Right.
So people get on, and there's been meetings with people to get ideas of what stuff are. And so I think River Park is a little farther ahead than other parks, but there's 4 main parks that get major redos. Hartkoff, River Park, and I'm dropping the other 2. I can think of where they are, but I can't picture the name offhand. But that are going to get major
We'll be moving into that same process.
Yeah, and we'll do them gradually because we don't have the people power to do everything at once. And frankly, lessons we learned in the first one, we can apply in the second one. So, yeah.
So lots of good things coming up in the future for parks and new ways to use those parks, right?
Yep. We're trying to think of not just parks is what needed now, but what are they going to be like in 10 years?
Right.
So there's a couple lots of pickleball courts.
Right.
Lots of flower gardens. So people who want to be able to get out in nature, and it's not green grass, it's flower gardens. So we're trying to think of how we can do things differently, trying to get people, different cultures use different parks different ways. And so we're still working on that. But every park that's identified is going to go through a lengthy, and I say lengthy, 6 to 9 month process of engage, probably even a 12-month, and then come back with a plan, engage,
right.
and then go back to the council for approvals, and then start working.
So none of the projects are snap and done.
No.
So people should appreciate the fact that there's a lot of work that goes into them.
I will tell people, and I always try to be blunt and honest, is that there should be no reason that you should not have heard of your park. If it's on that list, you should be engaged. You have to show up.
Well, I want to thank you so much for spending your time and your experience to benefit our audience out there. We'll ask you to tune in next week for part 2 on Brooklyn Parks issues. We're glad you've been with us, and we'll look for you next week. Bye.